and hello, football fans. What's going down? I hope all's well wherever you are. We are in San Francisco, California, home of the Golden Gate Bridge, which is inexplicably dark orange or red. I don't understand why they wouldn't paint it gold, but let's not get hung up on that. Welcome to the Dameshek Football Program, presented as always in San Francisco or out. Hi, McDonald's. Go get yourself some all-day breakfast. You know what would really hit the spot on Super Sunday? Make it a super start to the day. Egg McMuffin. Or you know what? Maybe a halftime treat. However you want, you can get your breakfast when you want and get one of those hash browns with the nice little paper sleeping bag that they put in for you because it's classy. All right, let's get into it here. Super Bowl 50 is nigh. We can't wait. We've had a wonderful time out here. I have gained 17-ish pounds so far. Let's say hello to everybody joining us here today on the DDFP, starting out with our main man seated to my immediate left here on Media Row, all the way from London, England. He serves as our resident Miami Dolphins fan. It's Handsome Hank.
He's handsome Hank, he's handsome Hank, he's handsome Hank.
Hello, Handsome. How are you?
I am very well indeed, thank you, Dave. It's a thrill to be here.
It is a thrill.
It really is a thrill to be here. It's Super Bowl 50.
We had a wonderful dinner with the Culinary Club. Our tour of the United States and beyond continued, and we fit in a great meal a couple of nights ago with one Ike Taylor.
We did. That was tremendous.
And Matt Money Smith, and we drank wine, and then we drank some wine, and then we drank some wine,
Some
and
more
we ate
wine.
some food around it, and it was all terrific. And but we're about to talk about the Panthers and the Broncos. Let's also say hello, though, to the host of the Around the NFL podcast, an emerging superstar in the world of football media. Here he is, everybody, with that tremendous head of salt and pepper hair. Dan Hanzus, what's the poop with you, fella?
I am also excited to be here.
How are you?
Yeah, the Dameshek show, the fans are out for Shek. The walk from the media center where the NFL media group sits to here, you just shouts of, oh, Dameshek, Dameshek.
Sign something for me.
Sign something for me.
There were people.
You're a hero to me.
We were on Media Row doing a different show the last 3 days, and there was a gaggle that gathered behind us on the set, and no fewer than 6 people asked after one Handsome Hank Hodgson and where was he so they could get their autograph. 1 or 2 people asked after Black Tie. They wanted his autograph as well. Black Tie
Was it Black
out
Tie?
from behind the glass, but now behind a bar here on Media Row. Black Tie, what's the poop? It's going well for you this week, huh?
Doing well, guys. I have a Jameis Winston exclusive if you guys care to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
certainly.
were supposed to have him on the show today. We're working on him. We're not able to get him. I did see him at the Madden party yesterday, Friday night, which Dan was essentially hosting.
Yeah.
I spoke to James and I asked him if it was going to be a Super Bowl 50. His response was like, nah, not until I make it. So there you go.
He won't attend a Super Bowl
Until
so
he
he's
makes
taking it to a new level. The standard is always you don't touch the conference trophy because it's a jinx, which I disagree with doing that, by the way. Who cares?
In general, do players go to the game? I know they attend.
I don't think a
Super
lot of
Bowl
them
week.
do.
I don't think he's making a big
prefer not
grand
to.
gesture there.
I asked Doug Flutie that yesterday if he was going to the game, and he said, I just can't, and this makes him sound curmudgeonly, but I do believe what he says. He said, if I would go to the Super Bowl, I would just spend 3 hours signing autographs, and he's right.
Fair enough.
That doesn't make him a bad guy. That would be terrible.
Let's spend some time counting all the times that Dave drops names during this show.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to it.
It's not within the context of me doing a show. If I talk to a football player, it's not weird for me. That's not a name drop if I talk to him on a show, like I talked to Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool. No big whoop.
Woo.
Hey, no big whoop about this,
Big whoop.
except for one Handsome Hank. My pal, who I see at the Super Bowl every year now, Franz Huvik,
Right.
from the 11 Sports podcast, delivered these Belgian chocolates. He's Franz Huvik is a Belgian man himself, so he brought some authentic Belgian chocolates for us. They look they look like
delicious.
pieces of art.
What a presentation.
But the thing that he said was he gave them to me because he hopes that they will grease the skids to replace you, Handsome Hank, with himself. That's his angle. He doesn't want you on the show anymore. He thinks he belongs.
You should give them back then.
Oh, well,
Or you prefer chocolate to me? Is that what it came down to after all these years? What about all the chocolate I gave you to be sitting here?
Let's see how the show works out.
There's a little bit of contentiousness
not put
between
anything in.
Dave and Henry today.
Apparently,
I like
already.
just being a fly on the wall.
We did just see Joe Namath. Broadway
We did.
Joe
That was cool.
was in
Yes.
here, yes. Many stars running here, there, everywhere. Tony Romo, a delightful fellow we got to talk to as well, one of the surprising guys. It's always interesting. You talk to Paxton Lynch. He was a cool guy. All right, let's get into it, though. Let's start talking about... Also, I'm going to show you one more thing, though. I am going to Super Bowl 50.
Hubba hubba.
Is this the part of the show where you raffle off, or there's a trivia competition to win?
I don't know. I
Dave's
feel like
ticket?
we should do a trivia question for Handsome and Hanzus, and the loser has to wear the
I like that.
salt and pepper mustache.
Well,
Okay.
it would go great with you anyway.
It really would go with your salt
And I
and pepper.
can't grow a mustache, so
All right,
I
let's
almost
play.
prefer
Let's
to
play
lose it.
everybody's favorite kind of trivia. Oh, I won a trivia contest on the Around the NFL show very recently.
Stunning.
You did.
I run Chris
Congratulations.
Wesling's toaster. Yeah, it's now mine. I might just retire.
Are you
Just
using
never
it?
give it. I might retire and just keep it. Never give it back.
It was the equivalent of like a 3-2 win in football,
Yeah,
but it was a victory.
it was a victory.
It was a
That's all that
victory is
counts.
what it was.
Yeah.
You get a W. No one cares what the score was.
Let's play Dave trivia.
Okay.
What's Dave's favorite kind of ice cream?
Pistachio.
Rocky Road.
Neither one of you is close.
Salted caramel.
Let me say something. You're a little closer, Handsome, for one reason.
Mint.
Mid-ship.
Dan Hanzus, put on the salt and pepper mustache. As we begin, presented by McDonald's, let's talk about who we're loving in front of Super Bowl 50. Handsome Hank, I start with you.
I'll tell you what I'm loving, Dave, is
Oh, this is horrible.
the idea.
you look great.
You look great. It really
Does it
does.
match?
It looks real.
Go on YouTube, audio listeners, and watch Dan Hanzus. It's time for him
It
to grow
really
a
looks
mustache.
like his
Oh
mustache.
my God.
You look just terrific. You look like Teddy Roosevelt.
It's like my future.
Hey, President Roosevelt, who are you picking in Super Bowl 50? Handsome,
Wow.
go ahead there.
I'll tell you what I'm loving, Dave, is as a fan of the Miami Dolphins, who are nowhere near the Super Bowl and shouldn't be talked about at this time, but
Agreed.
the Panthers and Broncos in 2010, after the 2010 season, had the first and second picks in the draft. And so what I see this Super Bowl
Ouch.
as being is an emblem of hope at Super Bowl 50 is that you can be the worst team in the NFL, literally the worst two teams in the National Football League 4 years ago are now playing in Super Bowl 50. I think that's pretty cool.
I think that's a fascinating point, and in fact, as we've pointed out, collectively divisions seem to really sink. And we think about the NFC West. It wasn't
Right.
really very long ago that
It was
was the
the worst
punchline
division in
division. They were
football,
7
right.
and 9, the Seahawks,
Yeah.
beast mode and all that. And obviously, we know what happened to them. We saw it. Carolina Panthers were 7 and 9 last year, and if you haven't heard, they're playing on Sunday. So
Right.
yeah, so there's hope for those bum divisions and those bum teams in the NFL. Hanzus, how say you?
Well, what was the question again?
Who you loving, fella?
I was in the middle of my
Come
mustache
on, President Roosevelt.
application.
It's a little tickly, isn't it?
I'm loving Cam Newton. I can't do this. I'm loving Cam Newton because he has this impregnable, easy confidence that makes me think this team has no way of losing. The Panthers, of course, on Sunday. There's just something about this guy that makes me think that we're looking at a guy that's going to win not just one Super Bowl, but multiples. I cannot see him coming up small on the stage. And this week, just his demeanor, how he's handled the press, the way he's kind of carried himself. I even saw a tweet that the Panthers sent out of him leading his teammates in like a on-field dance routine to 2 Chainz. I mean, these guys are ready to kick ass, let's be honest.
I completely agree, and the only thing, again, that has nothing to do with practicality, the only thing is that everybody is picking them to win the game. And that never works out. It almost never works out
It doesn't,
in
but-
pro football. If everybody goes, oh, that's definitely going to be, it never happens.
It doesn't, but I would always caution against people changing their pick on the Friday of Super Bowl. You spend so long like leading up to the game, and immediately after the conference championship game, everyone has an opinion normally on what's going to happen in the Super Bowl. And then what tends to happen is 11 or 12 days later, you're like, actually, I think the Broncos can win this one. And I've met a couple of people today who said they're thinking of changing their pick. Nothing changed from in those 12 days. It's just that you've spun the wheels on it so many times.
It reminds me of like the 90s when there were blowouts every year. This is before the first Elway Super Bowl that he won, where the same thing would happen. Like even by the time some people are like, oh, you know what, the Chargers, they have a chance to give Steve Young some problems just because it's the nature of the week and taking so long to get to the game. And then all of a sudden it'd be a blowout. I don't. As a fan, you don't want to see a blowout, but I feel like you're overthinking it if you're thinking the Broncos are in a good position in this game.
We'll get into the game pick, but I agree with you, Hanzus. The only thing that feels to me like could shake Cam is if something seminal happens early, like a weird, like the Peyton Manning snap over his head that started the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Barring something like that, or a bad ball out of his hand right out of the gate that gets picked and returned to the house. But outside of that, as we say, in real life terms and human terms, you can say whatever you want about Cam Newton with the misdeeds of his youth, but the fact of the matter is, in football terms, just like Black Tie's new pal, Famous Jameis, amidst all that tumult, he went undefeated and won the national championship and the Heisman Trophy. So it does suggest that he's very difficult to rattle, and this situation is not going to be too big for him. I'm loving San Francisco. It is perhaps, I think, New Orleans is probably my favorite city to go and visit for 2 days. But San Francisco is the best city. It's the most beautiful city.
In the entire country.
I think it's the most beautiful city. Favorite, I don't know, but I think it's glorious. It's so European and on the water and hilly, and the food is delicious, like I say.
Yeah, it's tough to argue. I like the city a lot. I think for a Super Bowl week, I think New Orleans is my number one.
That I agree with. New Orleans should be the host every other year at least.
New Orleans got benched for the blackout. They lost the last vote, I believe, to, Minneapolis?
To Minneapolis, yeah.
And next year it'll be in Houston, and Houston and Minneapolis are cities that have a lot of great people and football fans. But like the Super Bowl in San Francisco, this is a city that I can get behind as a Super Bowl city. I agree with you.
Oh, I'm going to gain so much weight in Houston a year
Still
from
look
now.
good.
Unless I'll likely have been fired.
Do you think
before
you'll have
then,
lost the weight from this week?
Probably. I'll have pared it down around mid-January, and then I'll keep it back on in Houston. But I do want to say, across the Bay here, the Bay Area, Oakland, they have a football team, the Raiders, but the Raiders are talking about Vegas. You hear some noise about Mexico City. Both, to me, would be just dynamite options for the Raiders brand in particular. Imagine if the Oakland Raiders, with the Al Davis, the 70s reputation, and the bad boys and all that, if they would wind up playing in Vegas. I think that would be the greatest.
Think about it. I mean, there's been chatter about, maybe they end up in San Diego, and that makes no sense.
No.
San Diego Raiders, I mean, that stands in direct opposition to both the city and the team. Yeah, Mexico City, a certain sense of lawlessness south of the border. I like that. In Vegas, we know about Vegas. I think Mark Davis even dropped the old "what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas" line when they discussed some type of conversation about
him alone,
the possibility.
Him living in Las Vegas is reason enough for it to happen.
It is great.
I haven't. One of my favorite acts or pastimes during any of these tentpole league events is seeing Mark Davis in the hotel lobby, hanging out, and I haven't seen him yet. So
I've seen him a couple of times. He's looking well.
Yeah, great.
It would also be neat because if the visiting team the night before the game at one of those Cirque du Soleil shows or something like that, it'd be fun to go out.
Or Tony Bennett,
something like that. Yeah.
Something like that.
So I'm
That'd be
rooting for that. I hope Vegas happens, but Mexico City legitimately would be a neat thing too.
Why do you think that? Why do you like that?
Clearly, the NFL is trying to expand into that market like they have successfully done in London, and they're dipping their toe in that Mexico City water. It would be more plausible, it seems to me, right now than it is to put a team in London for 16 games or for 8 games. That travel schedule wouldn't be that disruptive to a visiting team. I think it would be a fascinating move for the NFL.
But also, I think
want to
Denver
be living there or
right.
being
That's going to be
that
one of the
aspect
issues.
of it. I
but
feel like it'd be
I
tough.
think Denver's obviously famously high above sea level. I think Mexico City's even higher than that.
Really?
So they'd have an incredible home field advantage as well.
Huh. All right. And of course, the visiting team would not be able to drink the water. For real, they wouldn't be able to drink the water.
That is true.
All right, let's get to it now. Enough talk about this, that, and the other. Let's talk about Super Bowl 50. Very important stuff. We're going to break it down for you, what it means to the two teams if they get to hold that Lombardi Trophy on Sunday night. Very important stuff, starting off with the wizard of all football picking wizards. 18 months of age, wise beyond his years. It's football baby. Is he making his final pick here? I don't know.
We don't know.
It's been a long season for him. Nothing's off the table. We'll see. We'll think about that in the offseason. Football baby's going to do what's best for football baby and his family. But right now, Here is his final pick of the 2015/16 season. Football baby.
Football baby, the baby who picks football games.
Behold, the NFL wasteland of would-be champions for the season of 2015. We have but two remaining. Football baby, Carolina Panthers, Denver Broncos. Choose. Carolina Panthers, Denver Broncos. Who will claim the golden anniversary of America's greatest game? Make your choice. It will not be the Cowboys. They have their share of rings already. The Seahawks have been there recently, but not in February of 2016. Broncos, Panthers, choose. Not the Seahawks. Bye-bye indeed. See you next year. Here we go now. Broncos, Panthers. That is close. That is a Texans helmet. That's a Bills helmet. Something tells me you are thinking about a ranch. This bodes well for Denver. You must choose. That is old news. Rex Ryan, see you next year. Bill O'Brien, you too. You have chosen the Carolina Panthers are the Super Bowl 50 champions. Congratulations to all. And to all, a good night.
Football baby.
Wow, that's tough for the Broncos.
That is tough for the Broncos.
It looked like for a moment there he was pondering the Denver Broncos, and
He teased Elway and Peyton. They were standing.
Yeah.
Whoa, what's up? That
Not
was a
happy.
roller
They won't be
coaster.
happy at all.
at what point during the taping of that bit, Dave, did you actually worry that it just was never going to happen?
I had faith. He was contemplating. It's been a
Yeah.
long season, like I mentioned there.
Did he pick Team Irvin or Team Rice last week?
Yeah, some things are beneath him. Some things are beneath him. Reminder, I don't know what's going on with the Pro Bowl. Remember Dameshek's idea. Loser Bowl, the two worst teams play. The winner gets the first overall pick in the spring's draft.
Somebody in my Twitter timeline presented that as their own idea, and I didn't call them out or anything, but I thought to myself, only Dameshek has come up with that, right? Because it's brilliant. It's either that, you go that route, or the goofy 1990s ESPN skills challenge they used to do.
Which was the best. Nothing goofy
Kick a
about
field
that.
goal between two palm trees into the ocean. Like, just go, let them have fun and get it all on tape, doing acts of greatness.
Booze included. Yeah, let's really, if we're
Yeah.
going to do it, let's do it the right way. All right, let's get into it, fellas. We hear what Football Baby thinks is going to happen. Broncos and Panthers. We have chopped it up every which way. So is everybody else who talks about football in the last couple of weeks. How will Super Bowl 50 unfold? Hanzus, what do you think? First quarter, what's going on in the game? Halftime, what's going on when they get out of there, when Beyonce and Coldplay and so on are singing?
I think, if somehow Denver hangs around for those first 10, half hour of the viewing experience, you feel good that they might be able to hang around, maybe steal the game. But then I'm looking at what's been happening with the Panthers is that the way they're built and the way they've jumped out to these big leads on everyone. I think if you think that the Panthers are going to win this game in a manner that will be, kind of cruising, it's going to be the same thing where they jump out to a 14-point lead before they get to the second round of commercials. That's kind of how I see this, and maybe Denver recovering a little bit. I like the son of bum, maybe calming things down and hoping maybe Peyton gets him back in the game. But I see the game being a game where Carolina jumps out ahead early by multiple touchdowns.
You know what? Before we continue to discuss it, I think first things first, we should do the red challenge flag picks because you're going to tip your hand if we go too much with what we think is going to happen. Let's do it. Red challenge flag picks. Why doesn't Hanzus sing?
What's wrong
Is
with
that
you?
a
He's too
thing?
big for that.
Is that a thing? Are you going to do it? Ready? Let's do it
I'll
again.
do it.
But we all sing. Ready?
We all
1,
sing.
2, 3. Black tie, you 2. A 1, 2, 3, do it. Red Challenge flag picks. All right, let's do it now.
I like it.
Hanzus, you are our visitor, so there's only one game to pick. You get to do it. What are you shaking your head about, Black Tie?
That was a poor job.
By who?
Do better. Dan wasn't into
You know
it,
what's a poor job?
What do you
Not
mean?
giving our people the red
Where
challenge
are the
flag
red
pick.
challenge?
Where are the red flags?
Instead, it's Jeff Fisher's
Oh, here,
mustache.
we'll wait for you, Black Tie.
There
Take
we go.
your time.
Got it.
This is
what I do.
uncomfortable, guys, that I have to ask, but what are the rules of the game?
It is uncomfortable. You make your pick.
Yes.
Just state who you think the winner is. If Handsome wants to challenge you, he will
Okay.
throw the red challenge flag at you.
on
All right.
All right, Dan Hanzus.
All right.
Carolina Panthers. Denver Broncos. Choose.
Like being Dave's
I should just sit
child.
around like the football baby for a while. I think this is a one-sided game. I think the Carolina Panthers, like I said, are going to jump out to an early lead. And I think by the time we're in the fourth quarter, this game will be well decided. 34-13 final. Panthers, Cam Newton the MVP, and we start the discussion of where this team ranks all time.
You didn't really explain the rules to him, did you?
Well, I thought I did, but apparently he's
What
a
did I do
slow
wrong?
learner.
It's fine, don't worry.
That's fine.
We'll get you
Go
for
ahead.
next year. We'll get you.
We'll fix it in post. Go ahead.
Should I throw the flag?
No, you don't. Well, I would be throwing the flag.
Come
but
on,
I'm not
throw it,
going,
Handsome.
No,
Be a
I'm
man
not,
and throw
I'm
it
not picking
at
the
him.
Broncos just for your entertainment, Dave. I will throw the red challenge flag somewhere over there because I don't need it. I'm picking the Panthers. Of course, you're picking the Panthers. I think the one difference from Dan is, I think the way that they've gone through this week, I could possibly see the Panthers come out a little bit not as loose as I think we think they've been, because I think they wanted to play this game on Tuesday. And I think that it seems like from the press conferences we've seen, Cam's getting a little bit kind of like he was at the beginning of his career in press conferences. I think he's a bit tight. I think they may come out and be a little bit tight for the first 5-10 minutes of the game, and then I think that's when they put the
You say
accelerator
Carolina will
on.
be tight?
A little bit to start with, yeah. Oh, you're throwing the challenge flag on that.
They're not going to be tight. What have you seen in any of their playoff games to suggest they're going to come out and be tight?
Exactly, but the 2
Was that
weeks,
right that I
the
threw
2
the flag
weeks.
there?
Yeah, that's good. That's worked.
Okay.
The 2 weeks that have happened in between, I think, are the things that are going to make them tight. I think they were ready to play this game in the middle of this week.
I'm going to go with the Panthers as well, so a clean sweep out here pending Black Tie's pick. But what do you hear you got, Black Tie? He's going to take Denver. He's going to take the Broncos.
Because
He's
I've been
gonna take
rooting
the
for the
Broncos.
Peyton Manning Bizarro season for a little while.
We don't
Oh,
care
yeah.
who you're rooting
Yeah.
for. Who do you think is going to win?
Well, I think the Panthers are going to win. It'll be fun to see Cam win, but I'm also rooting for my hot takes.
we
There's
talk.
something-
Go ahead.
There's something
He's rooting for
unsightly
both.
about a man saying that he's rooting for his hot takes. I don't know. But I don't know. It feels weird.
It's a new dish at McDonald's. You can
Yeah.
get it on the all-day breakfast. I'm going to take the Panthers, and one thing that we talk about a great deal is the human element and the psychology of the professional athlete versus schnooks like me, and that confidence, and it's hard to get a read on. And we also always talk about Hanzus, and everybody says, oh, why do you hate Peyton Manning? I don't hate Peyton Manning, but I do think as a human being, once it starts to get in your head, wow, I failed, and people now are pointing at it, Clayton Kershaw, there are a number of athletes that stand out, that Tony Romo. It does take something. It is an extra layer to get over, an extra hump to get over. Conversely, the thing I love is the underdog story, a guy coming out, that guy, whoever knew Timmy Smith of DC when they won that Super Bowl many moons ago. That story is fine, it's charming. I like better when you are supposed to do it. When you were born to be the greatest and you go out on the biggest stage and you do it, I find that the greatest because Peyton Manning knows it to a degree, and in fact, he's gotten to be more deferential in the last few weeks since he got the gig back from Osweiler. Cam Newton is at the height of his powers. This could be his coronation. This could start a 5 to 10 year run for him as being in the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the league here. If he can do it, if he can put the cherry on top of 2015, he's going to be the MVP the night before. Can he then add in a Lombardi trophy? I say yes.
Here's a theory, because I like what you're saying about Peyton being a little tight, and that I won't deny in some of these past games, with the big stage.
I don't think he chokes, though. I always say
Right,
he
not a
doesn't
choke, but
I
just
think
maybe
it's
being
in your
aware
head.
of what that is. The idea now that he's such a limited player and his mindset shifting in a sense that I know I'm not the most talented guy, and he's fighting that war. That maybe all that stuff, other stuff, gets canceled out a little bit, and he somehow plays better with lesser physical skills.
I absolutely buy that.
I think I agree.
That's
the case for the Denver Broncos.
He's not walking out onto the field thinking on Sunday. He's not walking out there like I better have
it's
the
not
game.
me.
It
doesn't have to be him. Exactly.
But I also think that Demaryius Thomas is going to have to be the difference maker. He, to me, is the X factor for the Broncos offense at least. He has to make plays because they're not really built outside of Luke Kuechly joining in on plays. I mean, they're going to be dependent on the speed of their linebackers to negate Demaryius Thomas catching a bubble screen or a little quick pass and housing it. We've seen Demaryius Thomas do that. Short of that happening, I just don't know what the Broncos are going to do to move the ball.
The Panthers defense has consistently been an excellent tackling team as well, and I think you have to be at this to get this far in the season. But they don't often let people just run the whole way down the field like that.
It sounds like we all think Cam is the MVP if the Panthers win. Am I right about that?
I think so.
Who is the MVP if the Broncos somehow
I think if the Broncos win, it's a guy that none of us would come up with now. I think if the Broncos win, it's going to be because Owen Daniels has an incredible game out of nowhere, or someone that you wouldn't imagine is going to have a huge game has a huge game.
Here's the thing, though. If the Broncos win and it's a storybook Peyton ending,
that's right.
All he has to do is not have a terrible game. Like if Owen Daniels catches 2 touchdown passes, that means Peyton threw 2. All he needs to throw 2 touchdowns. Throw for around 200 yards. Don't throw 3 picks.
But the story will be because the defense shut down.
I know, but that's why I brought this question up. Was it for exactly that point?
They vote with their hearts.
I think Aqib Talib defensively. It could be anybody, but he's the most likely candidate. I would think. They need the house one. They need a pick six. Something weird has to happen for them to be in the game. They're not just going to if the turnovers are even and there aren't defensive touchdowns or special teams touchdowns. I just don't see how Denver will be in this game. Remember now, Carolina has whipped good teams to get here. They whipped Seattle. Exactly. It got sideways and it got weird towards the end there. They destroyed the Arizona Cardinals. And if you think about it, I think the Cardinals are similar to the Broncos in many respects. Obviously, Carson Palmer can push it more, but then again, he throws a bad pick. So I could see that happening to Peyton here, too.
I overheard walking by Larry Fitzgerald Sr.'s father is a journalist in the Minneapolis area. He's always at the Super Bowl. And I happened to walk by a conversation where one guy was like, I still can't believe what happened to the Cardinals. And then Larry was like, yeah, it still doesn't make any sense to me. And that's the other thing with the Panthers. Like, I'm going to pick against the team. The Arizona Cardinals were a tremendous team this year, and the Panthers broke their will and made them look like the 1996 Jets. I mean, that is a telling, aspect when you look at what the Panthers are capable of. And it could be bad news for the Broncos.
Psychological breakdown or fluky tip pass early that gets returned. Those are the puncher's chances that I think the Broncos have. Outside of that, the matchup is all for the Panthers in my book. It is fun to think about how bad would Peyton's stats have to be in victory for him not to get the MVP. Like 98 yards? Like, I'll give it to him anyway. Yes, give it to him.
He would have to have, because Namath didn't throw a touchdown and got a Super Bowl MVP. So he would basically just have to have a clean game if he didn't throw a touchdown.
But I still think there will be, there'd have to be a pick six and those type of things on the other side. We're 2 years removed from Malcolm Smith being the Super Bowl MVP. No one was picking that. So I think it would be.
You know what? I picked that.
Did you?
No.
You're understating the Peyton Manning aspect of it.
I am. You're right. But
what
I can't
about
see it
this, though? Hanzus touched on
this. You don't care
this.
about it.
They're not going to win.
Everybody is consumed by what this would mean to Peyton, and I do think, obviously, if he wins this, you cannot have the conversation best Super Bowl era QB and not have him in your top 3 if he has 2 rings and every meaningful individual record. If he loses, I think he slides a little bit more for the last season and a half that he's had, even though he got to the Super Bowl. What about, though, like Hanzus said, if this team goes 15-1, the Panthers, and they go through Seattle and Arizona, and then go through the number 1 seed Denver Broncos, where does this team rank all time in the Super Bowl era at least? I put a little list together, but I mean, we'd have to consider this one of the very best single seasons ever, right?
Well, how many 18-1 teams have there been?
There was
the Patriots
89.
without the ring.
Right, but they don't count. They didn't
Right,
win
they
the
didn't
ring,
win
so
the
they're
ring,
not.
exactly.
The 89 Niners are arguably the best. Well, everything is arguable, but the
Chicago Bears, the
Chicago
85
Bears
Bears
went
lost
18-1.
one game and then they went the
The
whole way.
Steelers of 78 went 14-2, and then beat the Dallas Cowboys and the good Houston Oilers team. So they're in that conversation. Maybe one of those early '90s teams, but I
don't know if you heard, but the Miami Dolphins, the 72 Dolphins,
You
had
know
a
what?
perfect season.
We don't need to hear it.
There
all
was
right?
they didn't lose a game. They didn't have that one.
Just go sip on some prosecco.
I forgot about it. Yeah,
I will.
The
Fine.
champagne cork hit me. That Mercury Morris opened, hit me in the temple, and erased my memory of that.
Here's the weird thing about the Panthers season. They weren't a dominant, even when they started, 6-7-0, they weren't dominating teams. They were just getting the job done. But then if you look, I would guesstimate from about December 1 on,
Right.
maybe right around Thanksgiving, they just started destroying everyone. So it took them a little longer to hit their stride, whereas a team like, let's say the 85 Bears were killing everyone
people
all
the
season.
whole way through the season.
So I don't know if you take anything away from them, that they took a little longer to be truly dominant, but now they are when it counts the most.
I got news for you. I watched the 85 Bears. You're younger than I am, Hanzus, and probably don't remember that team that vividly. This team is better. This team is more balanced. This team is all Cam Newton in some sense, but on the other hand, that Bears offense was not comparable to this.
Not, no.
This Carolina offense is better. They're right. The point is, if they win this one, we will quickly ramp up. Where does this team rank all time? And it will be in the top 5.
Which is funny, too, because no one was really talking about that 2 weeks ago. But now I think it's snuck up on everybody a little bit. Wait, if they kick butt again this week, that means that they lost one game all season and just were giant slayers all year.
And what a great trivia question that will be. Who did it come to? Matty Ice. Oof.
He did it.
Last thing before we move on here, we're going to bring up a couple old friends.
Just to jump in on Dan's point right there was 538, the Statspace website, had an article that said the Panthers were the worst team to ever start 11-0. To back up Dan's point, that they didn't start dominating until later on.
Please don't feed the no one believes in us thing. I can't take it anymore. I don't want to hear it anymore. I'm sick about it.
You can feed my points and make me look smarter. That's good.
That's true. That's true enough.
Thanks,
last thing is for you, Hanzus. I mentioned where I think Peyton would rank, and I know it's not. He's a supporting player, but the fact is that the way people regard John Elway versus Dan Marino has a lot to do with the fact that Elway tacked a couple rings on at the end of his career while playing with Terrell Davis. What would this do for Peyton if he does win this?
I wouldn't put him past Brady because this obviously, as we've talked about, hasn't been a classic Peyton Manning season. It'll always be nicer on the resume than actually like looking at it like him as a player, because we know he got a little lucky this year. That said, there have been a lot of years where he was carrying teams a little deeper than they should have been. I would keep him. He's in the top 5 for me, probably the top 3, but I don't think he would leapfrog Montana or Brady. So I think he's kind of locked in at 3 to 5 either way, to be honest with you.
I agree with that. I think 3 is probably where he'd land for me, but then again, I don't know. Yeah,
There's no way you would ever, if we
You would
really
not
had to
have
make a
him at
list,
3.
you put Terry Bradshaw ahead of him.
I
and
would
Fran
not. That's
Tarkenton,
ridiculous. How dare you? I would not.
Dan
He's
Marino,
not. Terry Bradshaw's not even the
Esiason.
best Steelers quarterback of all time. That's right.
Neil O'Donnell makes it
Neil
out there for
O'Donnell.
both of you
Oh,
guys.
shame on you. How dare you? All right, Dan Hanzus. Don't listen to his Around the NFL podcast because he's too sassy for his own good sometimes. Also doing great work. All of his, what do you call it? Your
View
nightlife
from the
of-
50, and I'm pretty proud of that title.
It's a terrific
What is
blog.
it?
If you
View from the 50. It has a vanity URL, which makes me happy.
NFL.com/view from the 50.
Director of Programming.
It's a
Very
reference
clever.
to Drake's
Very
new album.
clever. All right, Dan Hanzus, great stuff around the NFL, 7 days a week, keeping you hip on what's going down, and make sure you check out the Thrice Weekly podcast. All right, we're going to be joined by an old pal of Handsome from the UK who covers pro football and gets some good stories about Handsome. But right now, we like to consider how NFL matchups might go if they were played by their literal representatives. In this case, what would happen if an actual Panther fought an actual Bronco? Take a look.
Let's get ready to match up with Matchup.
In one corner, standing 9 feet on his haunches, sporting hooves like brass knuckles and an obsession with carrots, it's a Bronco! In the other corner, weighing in at 200 pounds of ferocity untamed, knives for nails and teeth that could make steel cry, it's a Panther! The Panther strikes first, lunging at the Bronco. But the Bronco is no amateur in the art of backyard brawling, using his muscular physique to deflect the Panthers' advance. Stunned, the Panther bounds up a nearby tree. Agitated by the scaredy cat's cowardice, the Bronco kicks the trunk with all his might, sending the Panther flying to the ground on his tuchus. Looks like not all cats land on their feet, but now it appears the Panther is surrendering. The Bronco is defenseless against the Panther's cuteness and drops to all fours to console the furry feline. But it's a trick! The Panther claws the Bronco in the backside, and the Bronco's bucking like a madman. The Panther sees his opening, pounces on the Bronco's back. It's a rodeo, with this cool cat trying to tame the wild beast. And does! Now he rides the broken pony off into the sunset. This one goes to the Panther.
Boy, another sign pointing in favor of the Carolina Panthers. Back here on Media Row right now with a couple of people. Well, one guy who knows Handsome from way back when they worked together in the London office. Neil Reynolds and Jeff Reinbold from the Inside the Huddle podcast on Sky Sports. Welcome, fellas. Welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having us. First, I just want to ask, what have you done to my friend? Because he used to be called Henry.
Yes.
It was a good old English name. What's he now? Hank?
Well, we like, we consider ourselves men of the people. This
Fair
show
enough.
is for the people, by the people. And Henry
work.
Hodgson was a little too stuffy.
much.
They
Fair
couldn't
enough.
relate to it. They couldn't, the audience, the Czech Republic was like, who's Henry Hodgson? And so we changed it to Hank, and he is undeniably handsome.
That's true.
You're
You
too
can't
kind,
argue with
Dave.
that.
You're
You
too
can't
kind.
argue with that.
So welcome to San Francisco. I don't know why I'm welcoming you like I'm the ambassador of the U.S. But
We
now I've
appreciate
done
it, don't we, Jeff?
What's it like coming over here? What's the best thing about the U.S. versus the U.K.?
The best thing about the US, crikey. That is, wow, that's a tough one.
Look how few. There
Bigger
must be
sandwiches.
something.
Bigger sandwiches.
I like that.
I think it's
Yeah.
just the fact that it's the game. It's this circus, this whole craziness. It's the only place I've ever seen it. It's here.
Surely they put on a show like this for I don't know what, but for
The
the
FA Cup
Premier
final.
League or something?
No, they don't do
there
that.
really
It's not the
isn't.
same. It's the week-long build-up. There's no place on earth where it's like this.
Legitimately, though, I've never been to one of the NFL games played in the UK, but
Yeah.
all I hear about is that the passion matches, at minimum, matches what you see in an NFL stadium on any
Yeah,
given Sunday.
I think that's fair, and I think the NFL then, they bring the NFL to London. We don't do this kind of thing around British sporting events so much, but when the NFL comes to town for the International Series games, they do roll out, take over Regent Street in the heart of London with 500,000 people. They go to Trafalgar Square and pack that out with 50,000 fans. So they have tailgate parties on the day of the game. So they do try and make it. They try and bring what you have here to the UK, and the fans love it.
You know, and if you've never been to London, Trafalgar Square, if you think, well, what does that mean to me? Think about Times Square. That you go and shut down Times Square with NFL fans in London, England. It's beyond. All of us, kind of came up through NFL Europe in the 90s, and we couldn't get 15,000 people to White Hart Lane to watch the London Monarchs against the Amsterdam Admirals. But today, the NFL is thriving in England.
There was the Rhine.
That was my team.
Jeff
One of
coached for the
my
Rhine
teams.
Is that
Fire.
right? There was. I see. Now I'm putting myself on the spot, and I can't.
Barcelona Dragons.
Okay, right. What, was there one in Italy?
No.
No,
There was
no
not.
Italian.
Why wouldn't there be an Italy team?
I don't know. They should have been. The Scottish Claymores.
Oh, I forgot about
Barcelona
that.
Dragons.
Berlin Thunder.
Why was there a Rhine fire of all the cities in
Because Dusseldorf is actually there's 1 million people in the metropolitan Dusseldorf area, but the Rhine region, it took a regional name, much like, the Carolina Panthers.
Wait a second, there wasn't a Paris team either, was there?
No.
There
No
wasn't.
Paris
We
team.
missed a trick, really, I think.
Very strange. Did you guys, though, so you were on the ground floor
Yeah.
of the rise of American football over in Europe. Do you guys feel like people who liked, pavement back when Slanted and Enchanted came out, and now, like, by the time they get on a major label, you're like, look at the Johnny-come-lately. So, did you guys find each other and gravitate to each other and be like, we're among the few who understand the greatness of this?
I think I think what it makes you do is appreciate scenes you're seeing like that with the fans turning up at Wembley Stadium, because myself and Henry have been stood in NFL Europe stadiums. So, well, game's going to kick off in 3 minutes, and there's like 3,000 people here. So we've seen the other side of it, and it's completely grown, and so you appreciate it.
And you know, the other side of it is just how you can experience the game and watch the games. I can remember, and I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, literally leaning out of my bedroom window with a radio antenna and trying to get an armed forces broadcast in the UK. And now you can sit down, you can watch any game you want to on, via Game Pass. It's incredible.
Those sort of childhood events when you have to go the extra mile.
Right.
And I imagine that you don't have to do that. Any 21st century child anywhere in the world probably, or most places at least. But I remember that same sort of thing, listening when my teams were on the West Coast in the U.S. and with the transistor radio and trying to keep it down so my parents didn't hear it. Forge a loyalty to these teams. And
you know, Dave, it's interesting. I was coaching in the league, and these guys were young interns in the NFL UK office. They wanted to be broadcasters, they wanted to be journalists, and so I watched them come up. But they both played as amateur players in the amateur game on fields. On fields that sometimes weren't lined.
Actually,
not enough equipment, not enough.
Myself and Henry used to work in the same office in London. Every Friday afternoon, they had this huge storeroom at the back of the office.
Vast storeroom.
Like a warehouse, and it had that metal rack in between it. So every Friday afternoon, it was our tradition. We would go into the storeroom. I was always the receiver. Henry was, of course, always the quarterback. Throwing it through the racking. We'd do that for like half an hour, and then we'd sit down and open up old packs of trading cards. They had NFL trading cards.
There was endless supply.
And then it ended. The whole thing ended when they'd shut down the Scottish Claymores, and they had a mascot called Shuggy.
Which was a giant bear kind of creature.
So I'm running around with Shuggy's head on, seeing if I can catch. The head of finance for NFL UK comes in and says, "We're closing that team down. If you damage that product, we're in trouble legally." And that was the end of our games in room 15. It was fantastic.
It was a good time.
And you skipped, I assume you just left out for time's sake, the part where you go to the pub and got 6 or 8
Well, that was before.
Right, then you went back.
That was lunch.
Then the head.
And then we'd go back and do that. But Henry got to throw passes to Steve Smith, to Isaac Bruce, didn't you, Henry, when we were filming various things for NFL UK? Steve Smith actually damned the entire British gene pool after he saw Henry throw. He said, "There are no athletes in this country." And he's a pretty good receiver, so
and that's post playing football. So he knew with Handsome, he could assert that, having seen what Handsome.
It went pretty well up until a point, and then he decided that he turned against me.
Steve let you down, I think.
I think it was a little bit of that.
Jeff, you say you were a coach, and you coached one Emmanuel Sanders at SMU, right?
Back when I was at SMU, Emmanuel, we actually had 4 guys that made it in the NFL off that team. Darius Johnson played for the Falcons. Aldrick Robertson played for the Redskins. Cole Beasley, who's now with the Cowboys, was a slot back for us. But Emmanuel was the bell cow of that bunch. He was truly the best of the bunch and an amazing kid. We had a great opportunity to spend some time with him the other day at the media day, and it was awesome.
Yeah, he started to emerge right at the tail end of his time in Pittsburgh. But it really blew up with Peyton Manning, and it was always a little confusing because I consider Roethlisberger to be the equal of Manning, but undeniable that 18 made Emmanuel Sanders a better NFL player.
And I think Emmanuel said that yesterday when we talked to him, and interestingly, though, Peyton said, conversely, it took about 3 or 4 throws and about a half an hour workout with Emmanuel for him to realize that guy could be special for me.
Well, all right, I want to talk about this. Tell me like the 10 to 27 most embarrassing Handsome Hank stories you have.
Well, that was the one where Steve Smith damned him was pretty bad. But
when he basically required, he felt compelled to put a pox on the entire
Did you see him just shoot me a glance then?
And Neil, I want to remind you.
That's a dirty trick, Handsome. Don't show your Union Jack socks.
So Henry,
I think it's disrespectful, in fact, to wear the Union Jack on your feet.
So let me tell you, Henry grew up playing in something called the Oxford Park League. This is too sad to even, I can't even believe I'm telling you it's so sad. Henry played one-man football in the park. So he would throw passes up into the air, catch them, by himself.
That's not quite true.
Then he
but-
would trade himself, mid-season trade, dramatic trade.
To the other
Trade
team.
himself to the other team.
So I could drive the
and
ball
then
back
play
down the other
football.
way.
And the worst thing is, he documented all of this in a book. And he once brought the book in to show us in the office. The book documenting the Oxford Park League, which, by the way, he was the MVP of every year.
For both teams.
For both teams.
Offensive and
And
defensive.
this is when you were in your early 20s?
Right.
Yes.
He's not even embarrassed about it.
I'm
Look
not
at him.
at all.
He's proud of it.
But you've changed the story a little bit. But yeah,
Well,
I like it anyway.
Don't let the
Yeah,
truth get in the
exactly.
way of a good story.
Do you know that Handsome, when he was 5 years old, was once running in a field in the UK and got butted by a ram? In
I
the
did
butt.
not know that.
That's true. That's a true story as well.
I did not know that.
He's
I
had
know
a colorful life.
He liked to make predictions, bold predictions. And once he lost a prediction, and he was supposed to sleep in a tent outside the League Hotel at the World Bowl, the NFL Europe Championship game, and he was going to do it. He brought the tent and everything, and then the commissioner showed up, right?
The commissioner showed up, and I decided it wouldn't be a good idea for me
To be
to
sitting
be in a
outside.
tent outside the hotel. I predicted that, I think it was the Berlin Thunder weren't going to lose another game that season.
Right.
And I think they sat everyone in week 10, the final game.
It was your only non-Miami
This
Dolphins
is great
prediction.
fun to sit here. We can trade embarrassing Handsome Hank stories.
That's great. Is that a
Handsome
wrap?
Hank once.
Type
Handsome
45,
Hank, you know, he
black
spent
tie.
a summer of his life castrating calves, as he
That's a
calls
true
them.
I
story.
think I do vaguely remember that one. He was the poshest. He's one of the poshest men in Britain. He's one of
Is that
the,
right?
Yeah, it's like the Queen, a couple of princes, and then I think Henry.
So in the US he will stay Handsome Hank, but now when he goes back to the UK, Posh Henry.
Always.
Posh Hodson. Welcome home, Posh Hodson. Go throw a pass to yourself. Pass. Go throw a pass to yourself. All right, listen, I could do this all day. I really would love to hear more stories.
Not sure it's good
about it.
TV, but it's good fun for us, right?
Give me a pick, though.
You know what? I just, Dave, I cannot see, and I'm a big Wade guy, and Wade's got 2 weeks to prepare. I think they'll play as well as they can play on defense.
Agree with that.
But I just think that if Carolina gets 10 or 14 points ahead, Denver's just not built to play from behind, and they're going to have to run the ball. Anderson and Hillman are going to have big games, and that's tough to do against Carolina.
You're not going to do that against that front seven.
So I'm going to take Carolina.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Carolina, when they get on a roll and they don't take their foot off the gas, they could be historically good. They look like one of those teams for the ages. I believe in the Denver defense as well. I can't get past 7 3-and-outs for that anemic Denver offense in the AFC Championship game. Like Jeff says.
And against a defense that's half the quality of what they'll see with Carolina.
Yeah, so I'm
this
going
Sunday.
Carolina by a couple of touchdowns.
All right, well, listen, enjoy
Now,
your...
wait a second. I got to ask you a question because my son is standing right out there, and he said to ask Dave about your call once upon a time as Carolina had the worst uniforms in the National Football League. Did you disrespect? Because he's a huge Carolina fan, I'm telling you.
Absolutely not. This is one of the weirdest mischaracterizations of something. It really is. This one makes me crazy. There's a little... I mean, listen, every fan base has some fringy weirdos. Your son not included.
He's way past
He is one of those weirdos. We did a thing at the NFL where we assessed the best uniforms in the NFL, the alternate uniforms, the throwbacks, and the standard get-ups. The Panthers, when they used to wear those shiny satin black pants with the black jerseys,
Awful.
I thought they were very ugly. I didn't say they were the worst. I just said I didn't like them, and their standard ones that they're going to wear on Sunday, the black jersey with the silver pants, is much better. A couple of their fans flooded, I don't know about computers, but somehow forced the thing to vote a million times.
There's one of them right there.
They forced it to vote a million times, so it was corrupted. So we said, all right, I'm not
He hung
awarding that.
you in effigy. He burnt you. I'm telling you.
People were very cross.
They were angry
It was
about
it was the weirdest thing I've ever. I don't know. Why do you hate our team? I mean, this year, as I'm touting Cam Newton in late September, early October, this is the player that everybody is sleeping on. This is the best player in the NFL. I'm still getting cross tweets from Carolina. You disrespected our uniform.
There you go.
Try and enjoy the Super Bowl, everybody. Great times. This, like I
Thank
said,
you
we
for
can do
having
this.
us. Thank you for
Neil
giving me
Reynolds.
this platform.
I know. Yeah, thank you, Dave.
Yes, Handsome. Was this a fun trip
It was
down memory
wonderful.
lane
Yeah, I
for
love
you?
seeing these guys, and I just hope that Black Tie can edit this part of the show out.
No, indeed. Jeff Reinbold, great stuff, fellas. It's Inside the Huddle, Sky Sports, the podcast, and beyond. And if you get a Super Bowl 50 program, you can read some of Neil's work. Page 150 is the place to go for that. Thanks to Dan Hanzus. Thanks to Black Tie. Mark Brady back there for making this all happen for us from Radio Row once again this year. Great times. I'm going to go gain a few more pounds before the game. So let's really do it. Let's really focus hard on that. Game time is nearly here. Enjoy Super Bowl 50, everybody. We'll talk to you after it back from Los Angeles. In the meantime, thanks so much, football fans. It's been a thin slice of heaven.